Hello, 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 friends and strangers. Welcome back to Shenanigans, and today I will be talking about the books that I read last January. So again, in typical Pam fashion, it's already March that I'm filming this. I just didn't have the motivation to do a wrap-up for both my January and February reads, but I am trying very hard, so let's go. For the month of January, I think I have a great start to my year in terms of reading a lot of books, and it's not as much as I wanted to, but it's enough to jumpstart my year. So I read a total of 6 books for January, and majority of them are thriller/mysteries. So for January, I read a total of 4 thriller mystery books, 1 dystopia/sci-fi/magical realism, and 1 humor/action. To start, the very first book that I read for January was These Women by Pochoda. I gave this book 3.5 stars. It's a thriller mystery/contemporary book. I borrowed the audiobook from Scribd. These Women features a lot of strong women who are caught in between their story of despair, hope, and anguish, as well as loss. So there are different characters in the book, but what's highlighted or what makes it a thriller mystery is that sex workers are being attacked/murdered by this one man. So it's like a serial killer on the loose, but that serial killer is just targeting sex workers. This novel explores how 4 people would go for their blood family and found family. It also tackles the painful, horrible, and hard-swallow truths about the people that we think we know. It also sheds some light on the awful judgment people reserve and spat on sex workers, and how people think so little of them to the point that sex workers are being neglected when it comes to crimes against them. Don't jump in expecting that this will be a thriller. This definitely felt like a mystery drama to me, which weaves loss, hope, hopelessness, and the search for the truth on what really happened to these women and why they were being brutally murdered or attacked. There are some quotes in the book that really hit hard, so I'm going to read them. Bad girls, and you wonder about their mothers. You wonder what they did wrong, how they messed up. Maybe they didn't pray, maybe they ignored God, maybe they accepted the devil, maybe they drank or smoked or took drugs. Maybe they did crimes, maybe they were thieves or murderers, maybe they had abortions, maybe they had many men, because it has to be their fault. The mothers of these bad girls. But it's not. And that in itself says a lot about what the book has in store for you. So please check out the trigger warnings before getting into These Women if you are planning to read it. The next book that I read for January was the second volume of Back When We Were Called Devils by Takashi Sano. I read the first volume the latter part of 2021, and I liked it enough to want to pick up the second volume. This is a thriller/mystery as well. So Back When They Called Us Devils features this high school boy who was gone for like 5 to 6 months, and when he came back, he has no memory of what he did, of who he was, except that he knows his mother, he knows where he lives. So as the story goes, we see how awful he was in the past before he lost his memories. Like, he was god awful, like bullying, rape, sexual assault, and now maybe even murder. Volume 2 really focuses on his journey to discovering who he really was and coming to terms with how awful he was and the things that he did to people. And now he wrestles with who he really is, because him not having memories presently, he's not awful at all. Like, he's good to people, he is starting to like a girl and starting to have feelings for her. He wrestles with the fact that he has done awful things in the past. The second volume is not as strong for me as the first volume. I was really intrigued by the first volume and jumped on volume 2 when I had a chance. It was just as intriguing as the first volume, but not as strong. It was intriguing because our main character is starting to remember and slowly piece together all the horrible things he did in the past, and it's hard not to feel for the main character when he can't fully own up to the things he did, especially because he can't remember it. This manga really focused on peeling each character and their motives. This is a dark and disturbing story, so tread lightly. The next book that I read is These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So this isn't the other These Violent Delights. This is the thriller, mystery, contemporary, LGBTQIA+ other These Violent Delights. So I gave this book 4 stars. I have seen this being recommended by other people, especially Riza from Pages and Coffee Cups. So do check out her blog, as she dived into the book better than I would. It's hard to explain what the book is about on my own, so I'm going to read a very short blurb that I found on Goodreads. So this is a feverishly taut Hitchcockian story about 2 college students, each with his own troubled past, whose escalating obsession with one another leads to an act of unspeakable violence. That perfectly sums up this book. It is super jarring and disturbing. It's a story about these 2 boys who are extremely attracted to each other, yet equally repulsed with the idea of each other and being with each other. So These Violent Delights dabbles on the horrible effects of a toxic and obsessive relationship between Paul and Julian, our 2 characters, plus how this destructive relationship was also greatly affected by their homophobic families, which led them to spiral out of control. So as I discover how deeply flawed Paul and Julian are, it's also quite easy to understand the motivations behind their actions. And while I'm not condoning it, I'm just saying that I do understand how intrinsically they just want to belong somewhere with someone in this very cruel world. The more that I read the book, the more obvious it is that the relationship is doomed from the very beginning. It says a lot about the writing when you can really feel how delicate Paul and Julian's relationship is and how it could just snap at any second. While I had a bit of expectation because of the thrilling and mysterious prologue, it was easy to adjust for me. I kept thinking that this isn't a thriller mystery book that I usually pick up. So along the way, I had to manage my expectation in terms of categorizing this book. These Violent Delights, in terms of writing and plot, it could get a bit slow and dragging, but you'll definitely stay for the charged writing. It's amazing, although it made me feel dumb for some chapters and a few pages. I feel like I feel dumb and I admire at the same time the writing of the author. It's just amazing. The ending will have you reeling and wanting for more. I had to reread the last few pages just to check if I understood what I read correctly. I was like, am I just dumb? Am I stupid? Why didn't I get that the first time? So anyway, I recommend this, but with slight misgivings. Like I wouldn't endorse this 100% because of like how disturbing it could get, but definitely pick it up for the writing as well. It's genius. It's that what we call love is actually letting your identity fill in around the shape of the other person. You love someone by defining yourself against them. It says loss hurts because there's nothing holding that part of you in place anymore. but your outline still holds, and it keeps holding. The thing you shaped yourself into by loving them, you never stop being that. The marks are permanent, so the idea of the person you loved is permanent too. That's just one quote from the book, and there are a lot of these amazing lines from the book when you read it. So do check out the trigger warnings before getting into it though. There is violence, there is murder, there's homophobia, gaslighting, suicide, and suicide ideation. The next book that I read is a dystopian sci-fi magical realism book, and it's The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I gave this book 4.5 stars. So The Memory Police is about this island wherein objects start disappearing, and there are these people called the Memory Police. They're like the governing body wherein they make sure that these objects remain non-existent after the fact. It follows this young woman, so it's in her perspective, and she is struggling to maintain her career as a novelist. And when she discovers that her editor is in danger, that's when it started to pick up. This dystopian novel doesn't rely on action and plot twists. Reading this book is like listening to classical music, so it has short and balanced melodies that slowly introduce the small island where things just disappear, and it has bright and dark contrasts that emphasize the island's resiliency against the disappearances, and the Memory Police itself, and how they still manage to live their lives as normal as they can, even though vital things start disappearing from their lives. So as mentioned, this isn't the kind of dystopian novel that is action-packed and has the usual formula of abusive governing body plus rebels sworn to overthrow the said government. So it's not like that. It's not also the type of dystopian novel where you can nitpick the world building and the mechanics of how it came to be a dystopian world. It's the kind that accepts whatever it cannot control nor change, and just shows the different effects of the destruction that comes along its way. While there are rebellious citizens, their actions are for them and their family, their safety, their freedom, but it's not for fighting back the abusers. I loved how it just slowly breaks your heart as more things disappear towards the end. Another detail that I love is that our main character is a writer and is in the middle of actually writing a novel, despite everything that's happening, and how her novel is a fictional reflection of what they are going through in the island. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I loved it, but I don't think it's one of my favorites for the year. I don't think it's one of my favorites of the year, but I loved it enough. I enjoyed reading it. I loved the slow pace. I loved how intriguing it is. And yeah, moving to our next book, the second to the last book, it's Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. I also gave this 4.5 stars. It's a thriller mystery / contemporary novel. The Miracle Creek takes place in this small town of Miracle Creek, and it's stories of an immigrant family from Korea and the entangled mess that involved the deaths of an autistic child and a mom of an autistic kid. So a string of events leads to the accusation of a mom for supposedly planning to kill her own autistic child versus the immigrant family keeping secrets of their own. So I really loved the writing of Miracle Creek. The story is told in various POVs that will make you question who to really side with. So the beauty of it is how it plays with your emotions and elicits really strong feelings towards every character and the things that they are going through. The plot is a lot. It's thick. and there was so much to unpack. What I loved about Miracle Creek is it's really the characters that drove the plot of the story. It's the characters that is my favorite thing about the book, and their flaws and their ugly truths are really spotlighted, and they're just presented as them just being humans. These are humans who would do anything to protect themselves, especially their family. These are humans who get frustrated, get hateful, envious, and humans who just do generally shitty things. So I especially empathized and understood the female characters of the story. So there's Mary, who is the only child of the immigrant Korean parents, and she feels lost in a place that she never felt like calling home. Then there's Mary's mother, Young, so she's torn between wanting to be there for her daughter and fulfilling her husband's plans for their future, even if it meant not being able to see and be with Mary, who is a literal stranger in this new place. Then there's Elizabeth, who is the mother of an autistic child who died during this deep dive treatment. And Elizabeth is just both tired and desperate to leave the situation that she's currently in. Just seeing her being at the center of a court trial where it seems like every odd is stacked against her. And it's just heartbreaking to see that Elizabeth, even though she's a mother, she's just as human as we are. While I'm not a mother myself, I can understand and empathize with her. The lengths that she went through may seem too much for other people. It may seem abusive, even though her intent were to help her autistic kid. It may seem abusive to other people, and this is what really drives the court trial and how it just seems that she's not gonna win the trial. And it's her character that actually pained me the most reading, because I believe that she didn't deserve everything that happened to her. Sure, I'm not condoning her other actions. They may be questionable, but ultimately what happened to her is unfair. It's like there wasn't any room for her to grieve her dead child. She actually lost someone, and she's stuck in a court trial. Miracle Creek is the kind of book that, since it has multiple point of views, there's no one that you can 100% trust. You'd find them unreliable yet relatable at the same time. So I found the ending both conclusive and satisfying. Although there are some people that I hoped were made accountable, but it's okay. Like, it didn't make me hate the book or anything like that, so it's still conclusive for me. It's an enraging and gripping story about the beauty and the ugly in us human beings. Another detail that I loved was the very end of the audiobook, wherein the author was interviewed, where she talked about and reflected on her own immigrant experience and how she finds Mary's character relatable in a lot of ways. The interview adds a really nice touch to the reading experience, so I recommend Miracle Creek, especially the audiobook version. And for the last book that I read for January, it's definitely not the least, it's Volume 7 of Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. I loved Spy Family. I gave this 4 stars. It's humor, action, manga, and I love how the fun doesn't stop with this unhinged found family of spy, an assassin, and a mind reader, while a political war is actually happening. So Spy Family is one of my favorite executions of the fake family trope, because it actually doubles as a found family trope. So if you haven't picked this book up yet and you're looking for a very funny manga that actually also has substance, you might want to pick up Spy Family. And that's it for my January wrap-up. This took longer than I expected because of the noise outside, so if you heard any of that, I'm sorry. Let me know about the books that you read for January and which one is your favorite. If you want to recommend me books, please do so. I would love to check that out. And as usual, I'll see you again on my next video, friends and strangers. Bye bye.